Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning back in to another episode of Your Gray Matters podcast. I'm Jason, back here with Neil. How you doing today, Dad?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well, thanks. You're off to the Grey Cup later today.
Yeah, we're going to have a great time. I'm wearing my gold and gray for the Tiger Cats, who are not in the Grey Cup, but
Awesome.
nevertheless, it's going to be a blast.
Awesome. Now, if somebody needed to travel to today's Grey Cup, perhaps they'll be interested in this week's podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Hey, everybody, I have a question for you. What's the difference between a travel advisor, a travel agent, and booking travel yourself online? Turns out there's a lot of difference. And tomorrow we're going to have Sherri Michell on with us. She's a travel advisor from Unique Travel Escapes. You're going to learn a lot of great stuff about traveling and how you can make your experience better. I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. So everyone, please remember to like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment. It's very helpful. If you don't know how to subscribe, just check out the video we created on it. And other than that, enjoy the episode.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil from Your Gray Matters. Welcome back. We hope that you've had a great week. Today, I'm excited because today we're going to take you all on a holiday. Well, we're going to think about a holiday and what goes into a holiday and whether you have gray hair or no hair or red hair. But come on, we know what's under there. We know that you need a vacation. And I'm really excited today to welcome Sherri Michell. Now, Sherri Michell is Linda's and my travel advisor, and she's terrific. More importantly, she and her husband, Brad, and all of us have been great friends for a long time. You can listen to Sherri today, and you can take her words as the truth. She's a straight player. She knows her stuff. She does great jobs in the travel industry, and we are glad to have her on the show. Hi, Sherri. Welcome.
Hey, Neil. Thank you so much for having me.
I am thrilled to have you on Your Gray Matters podcast. Let me tell you a bit about Sherri. I could actually tell you stuff that's not in the script that I have, but we'll keep it to this. So Sherri and I actually discussed going into the travel business together quite a long time ago. Sherri, it's like 14 years ago or something.
It was.
I don't know where that went. I went in other directions, but Sherri did jump into the travel biz. And she has literally made a splash. She has done a great job for people. She is actually the founder of the Unique Travel Escapes, which is a great company. Her motto is to help you explore the world in style. We're going to talk about in style today. She's really dedicated her career, as I've told you, since 2009. She's been doing this business. And I'll tell you, she's licensed. She has the Travel Industry Council of Ontario licensing. She's a professional. She holds an International Airlines Travel Agent designation. And let me just say this to you. When she's not being a travel advisor, she's a mom, she's a wife, she's involved in a great charity called Young Adult Cancer Canada, and we're going to want to talk about that today. Sherri, welcome to Your Gray Matters. We are totally excited to have you on the show today. And Linda and I are getting ready for a holiday, and thanks to you, it's all arranged. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want a holiday, I think you should get a hold of Sherri. And welcome, Sherri.
Thanks, Neil. Neil, I want to start by asking you a question.
Well, that's a reverse idea. Okay.
There we go. There's going to be a lot of them, so you better listen up today.
Oh boy, I got to take a test every time I'm with Sherri.
Absolutely. I'll keep you on your toes. So my question to start this is, if time and money were not an issue, what would you do more of?
Well, I definitely spend just a lot more time with my bride and the kids and the grandkids, and travel would certainly be high on the list. There's no question. And I'd probably just do this podcast and nothing else and have fun with it.
Neil, that was a great answer. You actually fall into the category of 95% of the people who are polled, they will say travel is one of the things that they would like to do more of. With the increasing demand of travel, and I am noticing, as everybody is, the increased cost of travel.
Yeah.
It's significant right now. So I ask, why would one trust their hard-earned money and limited vacation time on an online booking site? One small mistake can equal a vacation nightmare.
Really, eh?
It does. And we really want to try and avoid that. When I was preparing for our talk today, I was looking at some statistics that were put out by ASTA, and ASTA is the American Society of Travel Advisors. And did you know that Gen Zs are 95% of the time they will use a travel advisor?
Okay. You mean as opposed to going online?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's interesting.
It really was. And Gen X, 90% of the time they'll use a travel advisor. And boomers, where we all, well, not all of us, but where we fall, 89% of the time will use a travel advisor.
And what are we doing the other 11%?
I guess we're booking online. And I found that really interesting because we think of the younger demographic as being more into technology, but I guess maybe they are also tapping into that time factor, which we'll talk about in a little while, of what's involved in booking a trip and looking for a trip.
So is there a distinct difference between travel agent and travel advisor?
Absolutely. While one may think it's a play on words, it really isn't. So a travel agent books travel. The
Okay.
very definition of the word agent is a person who acts on behalf of another person and completes a task.
Okay.
A travel advisor, which I'm proud to be, we're full service. We work with listeners. We have to listen. We know the questions to ask an individual, no different than when you and Linda are looking for a vacation. There's certain questions that I ask you to determine your needs, what you're looking for, where you've been, and it helps me to find the perfect vacation for you. A travel advisor, we do research, we plan, we advise, we give our clients recommendations and solid recommendations, and ultimately we do book. We're also there to and available before you travel, when you travel, and when you get home. One of the things that I personally do as a travel advisor is about a week to 10 days before my clients travel, I send them a before you go email with all kinds of interesting information and facts. Those would include where to go to do your online check-in, how long before your flight you need to be at the airport, tips for packing. Travel's a little bit complicated these days. Most countries have entry requirements and documentations that you need to fill out. That is also in your before you go package that I send out to my clients because it's really important. Neil, let me ask you this question. Have you ever, and I use the word ever, because I know I'm your travel advisor today, have you ever booked a flight, a hotel, a resort, an excursion on your own?
Yes, I have actually. I have. I always feel guilty though, like I should be calling you.
Okay, but I'm talking in the past. You call me now.
I do. Yeah.
So the question is, when I talk about post-travel, how many times has that online booking engine reached out to you and said, hey, Neil, how was your trip? What did you think? Is there anything we could have done better for you?
Yeah, very, very rarely. One did, but I didn't know why I was answering because I never heard from them again. So I was doing them the favor of answering, where of course with you, you're in contact. And it is terrific. And I just want to make a comment because we are preparing for a trip. And I was amazed, Sherri, by the amount of work and documentation that there is now from the country that we're visiting. It's not just send us a picture of your passport and your driver's license the way it used to be. There were a lot of questions.
There are, and you'll have one set of questions and documentations from leaving Canada to go to your destination. And then there's another set when you come home. It's different.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the online groups can, even if they offer to you, they can't explain it. And we were lucky to call you a few times to say, hey, what's this? Why are we doing this? Linda also
Yeah.
took the time to go online. There's a Canadian government website to let them know that we're going somewhere specific. And that makes us more comfortable, actually, to know that somebody knows that we're there.
Absolutely. That's really important.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes down to planning and staying up to date on the latest travel trends and what's going on, you must get a lot of insider tips. And the reason I say that to you is because before we called you, it took us a while to figure out where to go, where we could actually know that we're going to enjoy ourselves, pay a reasonable price, but in be relative safety. And you were a great deal of help with that too.
Absolutely. That's part of my job. I believe in continuing education. It's really, really important. And actually it's an integral part of what I do. I do continuing education with hotels, with resorts, with suppliers, with tourist boards, with tour operators, with cruise lines, and insurance. I believe, and this is just my personal philosophy, that that's my commitment to my clients. And that's something that you should expect when you reach out to a professional. I believe as a travel advisor, because I do hold a TICO license, I am part of ASTA, that I am a professional. No different than,
Yep.
we go to our doctor when we're not feeling well. Yeah, a lot of us will go to Dr. Google for a few things, but you know what? We really should go to a specialist for that.
Yeah, exactly. And yet you've never asked me for a fee. You've never said,
No.
hey, Neil, my price is. And I find that fascinating too. I don't know if the industry does charge outside fees normally, or I imagine that you're compensated by the places to where you've sent people.
Yes, and that's a whole other conversation is travel fees, and travel agents are starting to, or I shouldn't say travel agents, travel advisors are starting to charge fees.
Really?
And that really came out of COVID. The number of hours, like I've been in travel since 2009. Before
Right.
2020, when COVID started, I had never canceled a client, ever. Um, Most people know we get paid from our suppliers. When we did all those cancellations, we got nothing.
Just part of the game, I guess. I know in the mortgage industry, some of my colleagues are starting to charge people a fee to cover their time if the mortgage doesn't go through. It's not something that I do, but people are looking to compensate themselves for their time spent if the actual transaction doesn't happen. I've never had that problem with you. You get the job done, and that's what I like the most about, or frankly, as much as we're close friends, I would not have put you on this podcast, but I do believe in you, and I do like the way that you treat people. I got to ask you, though, in these crazy times, Sherri, as an advisor, and again, I'm not asking you to be either a doctor or Dr. Google. That's hysterical. I never heard that term. But as a senior, and I earned every one of these bloody gray hairs. I like to keep them for a while. But when you travel nowadays, I guess you should see your medical professional and discuss shots. I mean, we're debating, do we need the COVID shot? We're taking the flu shot. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't give advice either. You do what you think. But I guess nowadays you have to really think about health and welfare more maybe than we did in the past.
We do. I agree 100% with what you just said. I don't give medical advice. I don't have a medical degree. When it comes to flu shots, COVID vaccines, my comment would be that's personal. Just because you travel doesn't mean that you have to have them.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a personal choice. One thing that I do, a travel advisor will let you know when you need to go to a travel doctor, depending where you're traveling. When my husband went to India, he went to a travel doctor and they discussed where he was going and where he was going to be and what he needed from a medical standpoint, being if there was any vaccines, medications that you need to take with you to protect yourself. As a travel advisor, we don't give medical advice,
Right.
but we will point you in the right direction
And there's
because everyone needs to be protected.
sure, and safety first. I mean, we're bringing our masks for the plane, and yet I've been told one of the safest places to be when you're traveling actually is on a plane because of the air filtration systems. That they're really
They are excellent, and everybody thinks, you know, when you what do you call it, the vents up above that everybody controls, and everybody at the beginning when COVID was, I don't want to say over, but when they started feeling comfortable traveling again, they're all turning them off. Actually, that's the biggest mistake that you can make. Keep them turned on because it helps circulate that air.
yeah. Well, I turn mine on as a matter of habit every time that I go in.
Absolutely.
I have this thing about breathing. I like it. I find that it makes it easier for me. Sherri, I was wondering too, and I probably should have known this, but there are really maximum travel times. I'm talking about being out of the province or out of the country. Aren't there some rules and regulations about that?
There are, and you as a Canadian and from Ontario, because that's where you and I are from, we're allowed to be out of the country for up to 6 months a year before we lose OHIP.
Okay.
What that also entails, so let's presume that we're snowbirds and we go away for 6 months. Let's just go to the max and talk the 6 months. We really have to be careful if we want to pick up and go somewhere else, even if it's to go to the United States, cross the border for 2 days or for a weekend. You need to be really cognizant of the amount of time that you spend out of the country so that we don't lose those privileges.
Yeah,
Because having our health insurance is a privilege.
Yeah, and you raise a really good point because when you mentioned OHIP, we're talking about Ontario, but our podcast is seen worldwide. And I guess the message is that you have to check with your own authorities, your own country, to understand exactly what the rules are for travel. And it's very important nowadays.
It most definitely is.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we raised that. The interesting thing is, I think your job is saving me as a traveler time and effort. You mentioned about going online and booking a hotel and that. I actually don't like doing it. I've found by working with you, if you don't have insight into a particular property or airline, you have the ability to get the skinny on it for me, to get some info. There's always online opinions and reviews, and we'd all like to think that they're perfect, but who knows who's really writing them. My experience with you is you're able to get some info.
Absolutely. According to TravelWire, the average person spends, and I'm not talking as a travel advisor, I'm talking as a consumer, 10 to 20 hours doing research for a vacation.
Wow.
That time doubles if it's someplace new and unfamiliar. TravelWire states that people go to 8 to 10 different websites, online booking sites, as well as reviews. It's time consuming. Now I'm going to pose another question to you, but I don't want you to answer this one. And when I ask the question, you'll totally understand.
Okay.
My question is, what is your wage? What is your time worth? When you think about the time involved in not using a travel professional to make your plans and to help you.
I'm glad that you clarified. I'm sorry, I'm glad that you clarified because I didn't know that why you wanted to know that I'm 198 pounds and I'm really proud of it after all these years.
There we go. There we go. The other thing that travel advisors have is that we have access to websites and systems that consumers don't. We also have a network of people that we deal with. So for me, I have fellow colleagues that I reach out to and can ask questions. We network with each other. I also have a network of business development managers. So those will be people that represent the resorts and represents the hotels and represent the suppliers that I deal with. So if I have questions, I can reach out on your behalf and furnish you with the answers. And that's something that the consumer doesn't have. And then the other interesting thing, just to sort of put in there for your information, is that we all draw from the same inventory. So when it comes to time, you're not paying any more to use professional for that vacation as opposed to doing it on your own.
Well, you know, it's interesting what you just said, because as I mentioned before, for a while, my Linda had an accident and was recovering. So we required some really special needs and help when we went off to these resorts. And there was no way that we could get the bottom floor room that we wanted without getting you to help us to do it. That was, we couldn't do that online. And it wasn't even 100% guaranteed by the property, even when you helped us. But I noticed we always got it, and there was someone to help us. There's an actual human being. I do have to say, folks, and I was very, very interested, by the way, what you just said, Sherri, about what the generations are doing with using a travel advisor, because I love talking to a human being. And it just gives me more comfort, even if in the end it doesn't, it does, because you did get us those special needs requirements done on the plane, on the property, some food issues. You were able to research it, get it done. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we've always had a great trip because of Sherri, because you have that human caring touch.
Absolutely.
Just my own thoughts on it.
And we, you know, a request is a request, but sometimes when it comes from an advisor, they get looked at a little bit more frequently.
Well, I guess that it's about relationships too. I mean, in the mortgage business, I don't have every answer, but I have the relationships to find answers, to find abilities for people. And certainly we've talked about some miraculous solutions in the money industry on this podcast. It wasn't because of me, it's because I had people to talk to. And that's a big part of why you go to a professional like yourself.
This is true.
Yeah.
We also help reduce stress.
Yeah, tell me about reducing stress. I like that.
Oh, well, we all need to reduce our stress. When it comes to travel, I guess, you know, I could ask how many times have any of us, including myself, you go and you look at an online site, you look at a hotel, a resort, you look at a vacation, you look at a cruise, and it looks absolutely fantastic. The beach is pristine white, everything looks clean, the hotel rooms or resort rooms look brand spanking new, or that they look as though they've been refurbished. And then you go and you read reviews, and the reviews are conflicting, sometimes not so good. That's probably the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is you look, you book, you get there, and you're disappointed.
Yes. With no one to talk to.
And no one to talk to. And then that circles back to what we talked at the very beginning about your hard-earned money and your limited vacation time. Is that the way you want to spend it? Probably not. You know, when you go on vacation, it's supposed to be to explore, to learn new things, to see different things, or just relax. I like to call a winter vacation a flop and drop.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great term.
People who, you know, that we all, when we live in cold climates, you know, that's what we want to do in the winter. Just go and sit, park our butt in the beach or a great pool and relax.
Yeah. Yeah. Without having the worry and the distress and everything else. And
absolutely.
And I have found in my travels, again, because of the wonderful places that we've worked with you on, I've never had an issue with food or food safety or water safety. And I'm not saying that you do if you don't use a travel advisor. That wouldn't be true. But it was still nice to have someone helping us because I'm diabetic. So we wanted to make sure that I'd actually have something to eat. And I don't think that the computer can do that for you.
No. And that's something I'm really picky. Like I listen to what my clients need. And I understand not everybody travels the same way. Not everybody comes from the same socioeconomic background that they can do that.
Yes.
But there is a vacation for everybody. Health and safety is number one to me. If
Yes.
somebody comes to me and I can't meet their needs based on health and safety, for my fault, some people will tell me, I'm straight up honest. I'll tell you, it's not going to work. You can't do it. And
Yeah.
but I'll say why. I won't just give a blanket statement like, no, we can't do this. There will be a reason why. But it comes back to reducing stress. The last thing I want is for a client to go on vacation and come back and say, this, and this didn't work, or we got sick because of,
Yep.
or in your instance, you're a diabetic, can't eat anything because they couldn't accommodate.
Well,
You know.
it's also interesting, Sherri, and I've never had to do this with you, so nobody should think that this ever happened, but I realize in the back of my mind that it could. If there's a challenge down there, I'm not talking about medical, we'll talk about insurance in a moment.
Yeah.
But if there was something that went on, sometimes the hotel doesn't have the ability to help you, or the airline, or it's virtually impossible to get through. I always know what your phone number is. And I'm not saying that everybody should just call you. That's not really your full role, but there's still a person to call if advice is
Absolutely.
needed when you're thousands of miles from home. And I don't think that any computer service is going to do that for you,
No.
as opposed to a good human being.
Yes. And I've had clients call when they're on vacation with a question. Sometimes it's a language barrier.
Yep.
You know, we're not always traveling where English is a first language.
It's true. It's true. And customs sometimes can throw you off. You don't understand what some of the local customs, which can be very important and can have religious implications. And no one wants to purposely go and insult somebody. And so
Absolutely.
you can gather the info, and it's good. I mentioned insurance. Now, you're not an insurance agent. It's not your specialty, but just right off the bat, I've had people say, I don't know if I need the insurance. I'm just across the border in the US. I'm going to be just fine. But there's certainly a difference between out of country insurance and cancellation insurances. Let's talk
Yes.
about the different kinds of insurance, why you would recommend them, Sherri.
Okay. First of all, straight up, everyone needs insurance. It's
Okay.
not just for boomers. It's not just for seniors. Insurance is needed by everybody.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Neil, do you have car insurance and do you have house insurance?
Of course. Yes.
Why?
In case there's a problem, I have coverage. We're dealing with a flood in our house right now.
Okay.
Well, not
So,
the flood, but the remnants of the flood.
okay, perfect. Perfect example. So if you never had a flood, never had the need to use your car insurance, a claim, or your house insurance, a claim, would you feel that you wasted your money?
No, because for me, it's having that protection if I do need it. It's the same reason that I have disability and life insurance too.
100%. 100%. So when a person goes on vacation, there's two types of insurance that we can talk about. One is cancellation and one is medical. Let's start with cancellation insurance. Just like your house and your car insurance, if you do not take it out and you have reason to cancel, this is what you get back. Absolutely nothing. There's that hard-earned money. Just said goodbye to it.
Wow.
When in 2020, when COVID started, airlines, resorts, tourist companies, they were pretty good. They realized that we were in unusual times, and they allowed for cancellation even when people didn't have cancellation insurance. It cost them a lot of money. That's not happening anymore.
Really?
One needs
Really?
to, absolutely. Well, if you don't take out insurance, You can't go back to your house insurance and say, oh, well, by the way, why aren't you giving me cancellation for all the damage in my house? If you don't pay for it, you're not going to get it.
Yep, I
They're
guess
going to
that
say,
makes
in the
sense.
future, if you'd like to update your policy, go for it. Should something happen again, you'll be covered. But today, you're not.
Okay.
So that's what's really important with cancellation insurance. And cancellation insurance can be gotten from two different places. So let's talk about like an all-inclusive resort for a winter vacation.
Okay.
There's two places you can get insurance from. Number one would be the supplier, and number two would be from a traditional insurance company. If you go with the supplier, the average, some policies are $49 a person, some are $89 a person, some are $99 a person, and some are $149 a person. Not very expensive for peace of mind.
Right.
And those would depend on supplier and then what the terms that you as a traveler want. Do you want to be able to cancel 24 hours prior departure? Do you want to be able to make that cancellation 72 hours prior to departure? So that would be where that would fall into.
Okay.
When it comes to medical insurance, nobody should leave home without it.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. First of all, the obvious. You get sick, you get hurt, you have an accident, you need to go to a doctor. The first thing they're going to ask you is for your credit card.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, even more important, if you're in a foreign country, and we talked about this earlier as far as language barriers, with proper insurance, what you will do, a consumer will do, is you will call your insurance company. They will have somebody who speaks whatever language where you happen to be, can talk to the healthcare professionals, the nurses, the doctors, that will then be able to translate back to you so that you can understand.
That's very, very important, of course.
Absolutely. They call them accidents for a reason. We don't plan on it. It happens. It can happen at home, but when we're away, it is so important.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't want anybody to travel without it. And actually, both of those forms of insurance are something that I almost insist on. Medical insurance, yes. Cancellation insurance. If you're not taking cancellation insurance and you're booking travel with me, you're signing a waiver.
Yeah. And actually, we always get it all. And I never used to take cancellation insurance because things never happen and it's going to be perfect. But nowadays, travel isn't the way that it used to be, and crap can happen. Pardon that word. And if you have to cancel for any reason, we're not talking a cheese sandwich here. There could be thousands and thousands of dollars online.
Absolutely.
And so I must say, I agree with you. I hate to pay that bill. I've never met anybody who buys any kind of insurance who loves to make their premium payment.
Yeah.
But when you need it, it is a blessing. So I agree with you. It's something to more than strongly consider do it. And I have to say too, if someone has an accident, you have a number to call, normally an 800 number. You have somebody to contact, you know where to go. Imagine being in a country where you don't know the language. God forbid you fell down, you broke your toe or something. Now the hotel, if they have time for you, might find a place for you, or dial your 1-800 number in your insurance and have that peace of mind. And I guess what we're talking about is the cost of peace of mind.
100%.
Yeah. Well,
it is worth it, and nobody should leave home without insurance.
Yep.
Now, the one thing that as an advisor that I get all the time is somebody will say to me, well, I have insurance with my work.
Yep.
That usually isn't cancellation insurance. It will be out of country medical insurance. And I have insurance with my credit card.
Correct.
One thing that a travel advisor will not do is make comment on that.
Okay.
Every bank, every credit card has different terms and conditions. And what my credit card may have, Neil, and what your credit card may have may be two different things. You and I can be with the same bank and have the same Visa or MasterCard, but just a different plan within it. Therefore, your coverage and my coverage may be different.
Wow. Wow.
So we will not comment on that. No different than people have people will have medical coverage with their place of employment. Please check with them, understand what you have. Now, not only understand what you have, understand how you have to use it, which is what I also tell my clients that purchase insurance from me, understand what to do. If you go in, unless it's life or death, if you go and seek medical attention and you do not call your insurance company first, your claim could be denied, or part of it could be denied.
Wow.
So
That's
just,
important. That's important information. So you need to make that call first, because that's
yes,
probably what your policy says. They want to know that
absolutely
you're
it
on the
is.
way. They want to know that they're helping you from the minute that this problem occurs.
Absolutely. And they want to be sure that you're going, especially in a foreign country, they want to be sure that you're going someplace that's reputable,
Mhm.
that you're going to be taken care of properly.
Yes, because I guess ultimately the insurance company is going to pay, either pay you back or pay the upfront charges. So you can't
Absolutely.
ask someone for money and not give them the info from the very beginning and expect them
100%.
to compensate you or to help you. So of course it makes sense. But I think as a travel advisor, what I like is I have this person named Sherri Michell who reminds me and tells me that, again, if you're not working with a person, you may not get that information, and you may. I am certainly not knocking online travel companies. That's not what
Nope.
I'm here to do at all. I've used them myself. But again, when you're really going on travel, for me personally, it's good to have a person to speak with. And, sometimes when you have an accident, God forbid, you can't make that call. And
That's right.
and there you have to understand what happens in that case. And that's a really good point, actually. And again, that I'm out of the country, and supposedly our government knows that we're in this country, but you're
Yeah.
just covering bases, and the price of a premium to have that done, working with someone who actually cares about you, to my mind, makes all the sense in the world. And I thank you for that. Sherri, I have to ask you, because you do some seriously cool traveling. And I've done a cruise, not my thing, but I know that millions of people love them. And I love to fly, not as much as years ago, but I love to fly. But I have to tell you, I want you to build the dream for people in some of the travels that you've done. But I raised the fact that I don't personally like cruises, and yet you've introduced me to this thing called a river cruise. And I think I like that thing because I could see the shoreline. But tell us about some of the cool things that you've done.
Oh, that's my favorite way to travel. We did one river cruise. Actually, our first river cruise was in Bordeaux in France.
Hmm.
We got on not really knowing if we were going to like it. I don't know, 7 riverboat cruises later, we're still
Wow.
talking about it. And the
Wow.
only reason we took a break was because of COVID, when we couldn't travel.
What's a river cruise?
Okay, without being facetious, it's a ship that goes on a river.
I know that sounds silly. It
Um,
sounds like we're in like a comedy movie, but truth is, I really had not heard of it.
yes, boats are pretty flat. There's usually like 3 levels. I think the largest river boat out there probably holds about 160, 170 people. Um, it's such a fabulous way to travel. It's intimate. It's so nice. You go back on board and they say welcome home. They know your name. They know what you like to eat. They know what you like to drink. Most of the time you're docked in the center of town. Um, Rivers, as you said, Neil, you can see shore to shore. They need probably 4 feet of water to float those boats. And it's just an incredible experience. We have traveled with 140 people, and in 2023, one. We traveled with 38 passengers.
Wow. That's sort of your own personal cruise.
It was. We have seen a lot of Europe through a river cruise.
And I think
And
that's the point. This isn't just hopping in a canoe and going down a river for a few hours. I mean, you are traveling and you are seeing, and I've gathered from you some of these trips are pretty lush. The food is great. I mean,
oh, they
the
are.
accommodations are amazing.
Yes, they're a 5-star service. The cruise that we just did in September, we were gone for 2 weeks on our cruise. We started in Bucharest and we went all the way to Vilshofen, which is in Germany. We did 8 countries in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
it was incredible. It
Wow.
was incredible.
Do you have to do border things as you cross into each country?
Interesting you should ask that question. This trip, so from Bucharest to Budapest, which is in Hungary,
Yeah.
when we got on board, they did take our passports. Totally outside my husband's comfort zone. He likes to have his passport on his person. He will now let me put it in his purse, in my purse. But before he had to be in his own pocket. They took our passports from us, because every time we docked someplace, the police came on board and they did a check on your passports with the list that the cruise line had, the passenger list, and they stamped our passports. Because we stopped so many different places and we were in so many different countries, and they did that. When we got to Budapest, they did give us our passports back because it was part of the area of Europe that we didn't have to have them stamped at every location.
That is so fascinating. Well, I have to say, it sounds fantastic. What are some of your other fun traveling things you like to do that you would recommend to people?
Well, earlier I talked about a flop and drop.
Yeah.
That's just a all-inclusive vacation. You go and unwind and relax. There are a lot of magnificent beaches out in the world. There are fabulous pools. We've done a lot. We have done ocean line cruising before, not my cup of tea, I'll be honest. A lot of people love them, and that is great. I guess the one definite perk I will say with an ocean liner is you can go on a week vacation and you can be in 6 different places.
Yeah, that is amazing in itself.
Which a lot of people find very advantageous, and they really like that.
Yeah.
I like beach. Doesn't have to be white sand. White sand is nice, but brown sand works too.
That's good, because I know that you've done a lot and you're in the air a lot and you're on boats a lot, but you're providing great info for people based even on your own experiences. One of the things that I love to talk about is travel in our own country. I find it very easy to talk about the beauty of Canada. We are
Canada.
one lucky joint. And, Linda and I traveled in the summer to the Maritimes. I hadn't been in 30 years. We had an amazing time in Halifax and Peggy's Cove. One of my podcasts, I open up. You can barely hear me because we're standing at Peggy's Cove. I look like I'm standing in a wind machine, but I have to tell you, there's nothing more glorious, in my opinion, than Canada. Maybe not between December and May, if you like the warm weather. But on the other hand, I've walked through the Rocky Mountains in the middle of winter. I've done a 5 kilometer run with my son with one of the running companies in February in Edmonton, and it was great. I mean, I don't know what you see as for travel in Canada, but I have to just promote the beauty of our own country.
It is. And I think as Canadians, we need to travel in our country a little more than we do.
Yeah.
And I'm just as guilty. I haven't traveled a whole lot of our country, but it's a beautiful country that we do live in, and we're very fortunate.
I think the whole thing that we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is that you're entitled to not only take a vacation if that's what you want to do, but you really do live. We all live on a really, really beautiful blue planet. We have all the nonsense that we hear all the time, but if you're willing to get out, have the guidance of someone, well, I would recommend Sherri, or using a professional in the travel industry. There's so much to see. I mean, it's just remarkable. I will just comment that in 1980, I took a trip to a different country that I'd never been to. I came home and I changed my whole career plan from that one trip. I'm not recommending everybody do that or anybody do that, but for me, it was literally life changing and affects me to this day. And that was back in 1980 when I traveled to that country. It had that kind of an effect. Sherri, you are really, really involved in a great foundation. Well, I know you and Brad, your husband, are very generous people and great people, but your heart lies with Young Adult Cancer Canada. I was wondering if you could speak with us about this great organization, please.
Absolutely. This is an organization that's very personal to us. It YAC, which is Young Adult Cancer Canada, they support young adults with, through, and beyond cancer. They are the connection. YAC likes to think that, not likes to think, YAC does connect peers. They're a bridge for people who feel isolated, and they're a true source of inspiration to young adults that have cancer and at any stage of cancer. Unfortunately, our experiences, our son, when he graduated from university, was diagnosed with cancer in December. It'll be 9 years since Steve passed.
Boy, I can't believe.
Hard to believe. Probably about 7 months after Steve was diagnosed, we were introduced to YAC through someone at the Dravinsky Hospital in Hamilton. Steve went to a conference in Toronto. Now his brother Matthew went with him because Stephen was not well enough to go on his own. When we picked the boys up from the conference, it was a weekend-long conference. It was any parent, how was your weekend? Like Matt said, it was the most awkward thing he'd ever been to because these young adults were talking languages that he really didn't understand. Steve's comment was, "I don't feel alone."
Wow, very important.
It really was, and is. We have this foundation for Steve on his request. He asked us to continue supporting because of how it made him feel. YAC's motto is every cancer, every stage, YAC's got your back. And we're proud that we support this. I support it through my business. A good portion of my commissions go towards YAC because it's that important to us.
Wow. Well, I thank you so much for sharing it. And we're privileged that you would let us know about YAC and also your personal experience. Of course, I knew Steve and we think about him all the time, but you've just given such an important message to people. Ladies and gentlemen, if it so meets your approval, of course, look up this very, very worthy cause. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Sherri. I can tell you it's been a travel with you. we've had a lot of fun having you on. Sherri, what's your website? How best for people to get a hold of you?
My website is uniquetravelescapes.com. So
Okay.
that's a great way to get in touch with me. Email is Sherri, which is SHERRI at uniquetravelescapes.com. Would be
Great.
the best way to get in touch with me.
Great. And we will post that, of course, on the podcast. It'll be in the description. Sherri, I can't thank you enough. Happy travels. Thank you for what you've done for us. And ladies and gentlemen, the next time you're traveling, think about a travel advisor. You know, it's like chicken soup. It can't hurt. You can have it. And Sherri's ours and a close friend, but I recommend strongly the travel industry using a specialist. Thanks a lot, Sherri. Bless your heart for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
Nothing's greater pleasure.